The phone lies face up on the counter. The screen says 8 hours, 12 minutes. A good number, by any measure, a rested one. But she's already reaching for a second cup of coffee. The number promised a full night. The body underneath it is filing a complaint. This quiet mismatch is more common than most people realize. Millions of adults now wake to a solid figure on a sleep app and still feel scraped thin by mid-morning. Faintly confused, they blame the coffee or the week. It isn't laziness, and it isn't a broken tracker. It's the ordinary shape of a modern night meeting a body that keeps its own books. Because the body was never counting hours, it counts completed cycles instead. Skip one, and the next has nowhere clean to start from. The clock on the nightstand only measures time spent lying still in bed. The brain measures work done inside it. Repair, cleanup, the deep and dream-heavy stages that only arrive on their own schedule. So the two numbers, minutes and cycles, quietly drift apart. One number is honest about minutes and blind to everything else. The other tracks real overnight work and shows no math. What that hidden count is measuring is the thing the screen never learned to read. Underneath those rounded off hours sits a hidden order, one tied to hormones and an ancient internal clock. The first thing to let go of is simple. What matters isn't the hours in bed, but the repair the brain finishes inside them. And that runs on its own order. The number wasn't lying to her. It was simply reading the wrong page entirely. The couple killed the lamp near midnight, one of them scrolling a few minutes more, the phone glowing on the nightstand. Nothing about the evening felt unusual. But a full night of sleep isn't one long block of rest at all. It's built from cycles, each roughly 90 minutes long, arriving one after another like chapters in a book. And each chapter has to end properly before the next one can begin. Inside a single cycle, the brain sinks first, then slowly rises back up again. It drops into deep, slow-wave sleep, the kind that leaves the body still and heavy. That's the heavy kind of sleep, the kind that feels like no time passed at all. Then it floats back towards something lighter before starting the descent again. That rise and fall repeats through the dark. Close one cycle cleanly, and the next opens on schedule. Here is the part the clock on the nightstand never actually shows anyone. Most of that deep, slow-wave sleep is loaded into the first half of the night, while the early morning hours lean much lighter. So the phone reports 8 full hours, while the body banks only a fraction of true deep recovery. Same 8 hours on the screen, a very different night underneath it. That changes what a late bedtime really costs the body overnight. Push the whole schedule an hour later, and the instinct says you simply lose an hour somewhere near the end. But the body doesn't bargain from the tail end. It starts cutting from the very deepest part, the earliest, heaviest cycles, the ones it needed most. The couple slept 8 hours. The number looks honest. So why did the deepest part of the night arrive first and drain away the fastest? This chapter starts earlier than it seems. The body sets tonight's timetable while the sun is still up. Deep inside the brain sits a tiny cluster of cells, no bigger than a grain of rice. Researchers in the 1970s identified it as the body's master clock. It has a name few people ever hear, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. But its job is simple to say. It sets the timetable for the whole night, hours before anyone yawns. This clock doesn't watch the light directly. It reads the light coming in through the eyes and uses it to guess the time of day. Then it schedules the evening the person hasn't reached yet, timing when alertness fades and the sleep hormone begins to rise. By evening, it should be quietly closing the day down. Its assumptions are ancient. Bright reads as day. Dim reads as the night arriving. Nobody ever warned that ancient clock about screens. So picture a home office. Late. One lamp on, a monitor glowing a few feet from the face. To the eyes, that glow is just brightness. But to the clock reading it, blue light says afternoon. The pattern shows up again and again once researchers point a lamp at it. A bright screen close to the face tends to delay the body's release of its sleep hormone well into the night. The brain, misreading the hour, simply holds the door open longer. The person feels alert, even productive, and mistakes that for not being tired yet. If a rice grain of cells can be fooled this easily, what else is quietly running late tonight? Chapter 2 showed the cycles. Chapter 3 showed the clock reading them wrong. Now watch both break the same night together. They eat with the show still playing, the laptop glowing between the plates. Neither of them thinking about the hour. Neither of them notices the two small decisions folding into one problem, because each looks harmless alone. That's the trap. Falling asleep depends partly on core temperature dropping by about a degree, the body's quiet signal that the day is over. A late, heavy meal keeps digestion and metabolism running hard, and all that internal work holds the temperature up. So the body waits for a cool down that never comes. Meanwhile, the screen a few feet from their faces is telling a different lie. One study after another traces the same pool. Even ordinary room light at night can blunt that sleep signal, not just a bright screen. It tricks the brain into reading midnight as late afternoon. One signal says the night hasn't started. The brain, still convinced it is afternoon, holds alertness high. Cortisol has no reason to fall yet. Cortisol, the body's alertness hormone, is supposed to fall softly through the evening and rise again near dawn. Meal and screen both keep it elevated, tugging the couple toward lighter, more fragile sleep before they've even stood up. This is why treating the dinner or the screen alone misses the point. Pull one thread and the other holds. Pull both and the whole schedule slides later at once. The couple thinks they're just staying up a little past their usual hour. The body reads it as the clock moving. And somewhere deeper in the brain, a cleaning crew is checking the time, waiting for its shift to begin. It's about to clock in late, for the most important hours of the night. Not long ago, in a sleep lab, a small team of researchers sat up through the night watching a resting brain. Something switched on that no one had quite named before. They were tracing where the brain's waste actually goes. It behaves like a cleaning system, channels that open mainly in deep sleep, flushing metabolic waste from the brain. That's the cleaning crew hinted at earlier, working like a night shift, moving through an office tower after the last worker leaves. During the day, the crew waits. That crew keeps strict hours, working hardest in deep sleep, which crowds into the night's first half. So the shift depends entirely on those early, deep cycles arriving on time and lasting long enough. Cut the deep window short, as a late dinner and a late screen quietly do, and the night shift never fully clocks in. The building opens the next morning with yesterday's mess still in the halls. But there's a second, quieter theft hiding at the other end of the night. Dream-heavy REM sleep is backloaded into the final hours before waking. So ending a night early, even by a little, removes a share of it far larger than the clock suggests. Trim 30 minutes off the tail, lose an hour of dreaming. The body isn't losing sleep evenly. It's losing exactly the parts it saved for last. This idea is an old one. The body keeps its own private schedule. The clock on the wall doesn't have the final say. It was not the first time someone had set out to prove exactly that idea. In 1938, Nathaniel Kleitman went down into Mammoth Cave with an assistant and stayed a month, far below any daylight. One question drove him. Strip away every clue about time. Does the body still keep its own schedule? Down in that cold, unchanging dark, the answer came back clearly. His rhythm kept trying to assert itself anyway, rising and falling on a beat the cave could not erase. The body was never really waiting for the sun to tell it what to do. It carried its own count the whole time. Picture a modern bedroom instead, a full night set aside, and still the sleeper wakes 6 or 7 times without ever quite surfacing into memory. Each brief stir cracks a cycle before it can finish. Sleep scientists studying this kind of fragmented rest have found something sobering. Research on fragmented sleep suggests many small awakenings can leave a person as hollowed out as a night cut hours too short. What it counts instead are intact cycles that finished on their own, not the raw hours spent lying still. A completed chapter, closed before the next one opens. That's the unit it counts. So the painterly infographic from the very first frame finally resolves. There sits the number, 8 hours and 12 minutes, calm and confident. Beside it now, the truer picture, the deep cycle sliced open, the recovery that never landed. Screen and body were counting in 2 different languages all night. Which number does the morning actually obey? The same kitchen, the same gray morning light, the same phone face up on the counter. It still reads 8 hours, 12 minutes. But this time, the hand reaching for the mug pauses and stays there, untouched. Nothing about the number changed. What changed is the person reading it, finally asking what it was ever counting. Because the screen was never lying. It counted exactly what it was built to count. Minutes with eyes closed, hours horizontal in a bed. It simply counted the wrong thing. The body kept its own separate ledger the whole time. It tallied something the phone could never see, completed cycles, not raw time. Sleep is not one long block of rest that only asks how many hours you gave it. It is a sequence of chapters that each have to close before the next can open. The deep, slow-wave hours came first, flushing the brain's waste before the lighter dream hours could arrive. The lighter hours came last. Cut that sequence short, and the display still stays proud. So the number stayed proud while the repair it stood for quietly went unfinished in the dark. Number and feeling were never in disagreement. They measured 2 different things. Only one knew what a finished night felt like. Tomorrow morning, the same number will glow on the same screen and mean something entirely different now. Your body was never guessing. It kept score all night. So what is your number really counting? Hours or a finished night?